push the record button. And now I'm going to start with the affirmative prayer. Today, I receive this goodness. Please say this to yourself in the first person. Today, I receive goodness. Today, everything that I am and have is increased by it. I identify everything I do with success. I think affirmatively, and in all my prayers, I accept abundance. Whatever I need, whenever I need it, wherever I need it, for as long as I need it, will always be at hand. I no longer see negation or delay or stagnation in my affairs, but rather claim that the action of the living spirit makes prosperous everything I do, increases every good I possess, and through me brings gladness, joy, happiness, and success to everyone I meet. Everything I think about will be animated by the divine presence, sustained by the infinite power, and multiplied by the divine goodness. And so it is.
So it is.
So it is.
So I'm going to mute you all now as we continue with our conversation. And then I will unmute you at the end.
It looks like we're not going to be on Facebook Live today because there's too many other people on and our connection is not good enough. So for those of you that can catch any bit of this on Facebook, we will be posting our Zoom presentation as soon as this is over. Welcome, Alex.
So our topic today is, again, we're talking about freedom because this month, when we celebrate our nation's freedom as a country, it's actually a theme for the month. And so we wanted to start with what does it mean to be free? And particularly in this time now, when so many people don't feel free, when so many people feel cooped up and unable to do the social activities that they're accustomed to doing. What does it mean to be free? And again, we believe that the laws of God are the laws of liberty. So if we're experiencing restriction, that must come from the restricted use of the law of God. And Bob and I were talking about how we first felt when we were told to social distance. And we, like most people, felt restricted. We felt really hemmed in and persecuted. and as it has continued, we've found freedom in the staying at home. You know, we found a freedom from rushing about. Bob found freedom from his work that he enjoyed many aspects of by working in the hospital. And I'll let him speak to that. But I, always included in my schedule doing things with my grandsons, often picking him up from school and helping in his care. And of course, the center, and going there to do classes and going there on Sundays. And actually I found freedom in having a slower pace. I can't do anything with or for my grandson right now, except see him occasionally at a distance. And the slower pace has become a freedom, a freedom to slow down and smell the flowers and enjoy what there is to enjoy, which is, we enjoy that we're healthy, we enjoy that we're well, we enjoy that we have contact with our loved ones on electronic devices, and that we enjoy each other, thank God, that we enjoy being together and are not, like as some of my friends are, who've not had it up to here with each other. We enjoy our time together. And so there's a lot of freedom in that. There's a freedom to find out what we want to express and we want to do with our time.
What struck me was it's an opportunity to be more intimate with the moment. And I think we often lack intimacy in the moment, intimacy with the moment. because we're busy getting one thing done so that we have time to do another thing and another thing and another thing. And with lots of things to do, there's no necessity to really spend your time in any one particular moment and ask yourself, how am I in this moment? How much of me can I allow to be in this moment? How alive am I willing to be in this moment? You know, if I have to get up and go to work, then my energy is towards getting ready to go to work. And then when I get to work, my energy is doing the job. And then my energy is coming home. And then my energy is what will we do now with the few hours I have left before it's time to go to bed. And so without meaning to, I think it's easy for us to put off being present. And I think one of the things that this pandemic has done is it's caused us to slow down our pace and to look at being in the moment. And for some people, that's a really painful and not very comfortable or not enjoyable thing to do, because they actually don't like their life. They like being in transit. And so if you're not in transit any longer and you're really busy being where you are, how will you be in that moment? And so for me, it's been an intimate experience with the now. And as much as I thought I was good at it and knew a lot about it, the truth is, I feel like a novice when it comes to being in the now, really being present. I know how to be present when I'm meditating because that's a task. And even in the process of meditation, when it's over, I would say I did a good job with that. And so without meaning to, I could very well even have my spiritual experiences be slotted in things that need to get done that I evaluate as having done well or not well, as opposed to how will I be in this meditation? How will I be in this moment? And in that process of being in that moment, there is enormous freedom. Because the freedom to be fully alive in a moment is our greatest freedom. And whenever any of that is stolen from us by fear or experience or things to do, we're not actually alive, we're on hold. And I think an awful lot of us have spent a lot of our lives on hold rather than being present.
Well, yeah, speaking of that being on hold and this idea of restricting our use of the law of God, how do we do that? Well, one of the main ways is to forget that we even have it, to forget that our whole teaching is all about our being free to create new circumstances, new conditions, new health in our life as we choose. Whatever we choose to focus on and create, we can create. And yet how quickly we can forget, how quickly we just become powerless over circumstances. And that's how we can restrict our use of the law. Number one way, by forgetting that we even can. We're going to be teaching a new class starting a week from this Thursday on Joe Dispenza's book, Becoming Supernatural. Let me put this so you can see it. Becoming Supernatural. And I'm just being thrilled reading it because he tells so many stories of people overcoming their physical conditions and both in their health and in their life. And that's what our teaching is all about. How quickly we can forget. We have that power. He teaches specific meditations that help you achieve that, which I think are great. But he's basically introducing the teaching. That's not just ours. It's all of New Thoughts, all of metaphysics, of how to use this power of the law of freedom, the law of good, the law of God that is available to us. So that's one of the things we can do, is just forget that we can do it. The other one may seem more difficult. He says that we have to align ourselves. Ernest Holmes here says we have to align ourselves, unify with the divine nature in order to use the law of creativity. So how do you do that? Well, it's really pretty simple. God is love. God is all that is good. So when we just allow ourselves to be that, to be the love of God as an expression on earth, to align ourselves with peace and goodwill toward all, that's how we align with the nature of God. And that doesn't mean that, I've certainly seen people who are not aligned, who demonstrate a lot of what they want in their life through sheer the intensity of desire. But you're going to achieve more when you align with the nature of God. Did you want to say anything about that?
No, not a thing. Well, yeah, and I think I see that when I look at people and how they behave. I was reminded the first time I met, I won't say, I won't mention her name, but the first time I grew an uh, in a setting, a group setting, and when I watched her walk in, and it was interesting because I see the presence of love. I don't just see her. And what I saw was a presence, and what I saw was an intention that has been, I think, present for so long, it becomes part of the fabric. And
well, it's an energy
yeah,
that's given off, and we pick it up whether we
yeah, and we don't know
name it
what
or
we're
not.
getting sometimes. I think we can even misunderstand it in many cases. But when with that, there's an integrity to that intention when it gets integrated. But I think we're like children, and that we have to keep going back and reminding ourselves of that intention until it becomes so much a part of the fabric of us that that's who we are. It's learning how to walk mindfully, and walking mindfully does not mean that you don't use the same path and you don't use the same shoes and you don't wear the same socks. It means that you step in a different way into the world that you're walking in. And as you step differently, you step more thoughtfully, you step more intentionally, you see things differently. And that gets reflected back, and everything around you also knows that that's going on. And so I think there's an integrity of intention. And I say integrity, I mean, first it's an intention, and then it's something that gets integrated. And once it's integrated, then there's an integrity to it. What we're looking for is a kind of spiritual integrity that we keep coming back to. How can I be that love that I talk about? How can I be that love that I want to see more of? How is it in every step? How is it in every breath? How is it in everything I say? It gets to a point, I think, where it's no longer something you think, well, how do I do this? This is who I am.
Yes, I remember because I had a period of about 10 years of agnosticism before I found this metaphysical teaching. And it was like coming home for me, but it was a wonderful homecoming to know my spirituality in all those positive terms, without all the sin and thou shalt nots that had been part of my earlier understanding of God. And it was just so inspiring and freeing to me that I noticed a difference in how young children and animals reacted to me. I was in a business at the time where I was in a cosmetic business, and it was sort of like Mary Kay, only it was called Fashion 220, and we delivered to people's homes, and so I would just notice when I was delivering animals and children that they usually said, oh, that pet doesn't usually like strangers, would be approaching me and wanting to be closer to me and whatnot. And I think that's that energy that is the divine nature that we're talking about. And certainly I can shut it off when I get in my business mode and things like that. Bob now knows to call it my business mode, and that I'm not mad at him.
It looks that way.
It's just me trying to get stuff done.
Okay.
But it's I'd like to be able to get stuff done and still be in that peaceful, loving energy.
Well, I think one of the places we can start with that is to find the places where we have the most amount of passion, or where we have a connection, and then allow that experience to resonate with the rest of ourselves. Some time back, when we were conducting Sunday services, we were doing a song, and Jennifer joined us and began singing. And when I listened to her sing, there was an integrity of spirit. There was
Jennifer Marchman.
Yes, there was a quality of love present in her voice that was just so much more powerful than even the delivery of the words, because somehow I sensed in her that was a heartfelt passion. That was something that meant something to her to do. If we find places in our lives that really mean something to us, and we can extend those, that's a way to begin to see how love is in everything that we do. I think it's difficult to go from I'm doing this to I'm going to do it lovingly. We can borrow from our loving experience in another arena. We can see how that feels and see if we can expand it. If I were Jennifer and I were depressed, then I would want to sing every now and then, because I would know that singing somehow was the direct opposite of the mood that I would be in. So what are the things that are the opposite of the negative? Can you invest in those things? Can you allow those things to be expressed? Because we're constantly having to update our consciousness with how to be conscious. You know, and if we're not doing that, if we're not conscious, then it's no wonder that we just sort of accidentally get through life.
So when you say be conscious, do you mean be conscious of your awareness, of your connection with
Yeah, well,
divine?
I think be aware of how you're feeling, and if you're not feeling good, can you connect with another experience in which you have felt good and borrow from that and bring yourself into that? So the metaphor I used for Jennifer was, if I'm in a depressed mood and I sing, it'll be hard for me to sing and be depressed. I can borrow from that experience where I have a passion. When I remember the first time I walked into Alex's house, the first thing I saw when I walked into the house was, oh my God, there's the attention to detail, a loving attention to detail. There's a kindness here in the intention. You can see it, you can feel it. Well, if I were Alex then and I were not feeling good about something, I would want to say, how do I create spiritual order in my life? How do I create that detail that makes me feel good? Because I want to do more of that. We can borrow. When I listen to Sandra laugh, her laugh is so infectious, all I want to do is hear more of it. And, you know, and so when she laughs, if she could hear her own laugh, it would uplift her. How can we do that? So how can we borrow from our own experiences? Because we have such a wonderful rainbow of experiences to borrow from. We can borrow from any color we want.
Very nice, very nice. So the third point that I wanted to make about freedom is that Holmes speaks of an irresistible urge toward freedom, and he calls it the divine urge. So, you know, he's saying that it's in everything, the divine urge for freedom, free to be. And that's why we were created with free will. We have free to choose what we want. I mean, what we want to express, what we want to put our attention to next, what we want to experience, be, do, or have, become, any of those things. And you know we have that as children. Children all know, I get to choose what I want to be in life. What do I want to be? Do I want to be a fireman or a policeman or a nurse or a doctor? You know, they know they have those choices. And we grow up and become responsible for paying the bills and doing things like that, and forget that we have these freedoms, these choices, and it's our divine urge to express our own individual gifts, our own individual creativity. And even if we think we're not creative, as I've had a tendency to think I'm not very creative, we're creating all the time. And you know, whatever you limit yourself with is your own limitations, not innate limitations that you have.
Well, I think one shift we can make, it's a simple one, is to move away from I gotta do this to I get to do this.
Yeah.
And, you know, I get to write, as opposed to, oh, I gotta write today, this is my day to write. You know, what if you said, oh, I gotta love today, you know, that's what I gotta do. I gotta love, because I read spiritual stuff all the time and I gotta be a loving person, as opposed to I get to love today, how will I do that? How will I express love? Because I get that, it's a privilege, it's an honor. Wow.
As Jeffrey would say, it's a love-evolution.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that. I love not only just that he says that, but I love the heart that's in it when he says it. It's like he's like a little kid who can't wait to tell you more about love.
Love-evolution.
About love-evolution, yeah. And I go, okay, enough already. At the same time,
But it's true.
But at the
it's
same time,
right,
it's like,
right.
I know you're a kid and you're having a good time. We should all have such a good time with this. We should all be so willing to have such a good time with the loving. But I think just that simple shift, whenever you find yourself, oh, I got to do that. No, I get to do that now.
I need to do more of that.
Yeah, and if we do that, then it changes how we are in a moment, how we're in an experience.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this new course we're going to be teaching, Becoming Supernatural, the Joe Dispenza book, because it's all about focusing on what you want to create next in your life, and actually experiencing that in your meditations. You actually experience it before it manifests in the physical. And I've become clear on some of the things that I want to have in my next experience. And so it's exciting. And one of the things is creativity and writing, because I've always thought I would write and knew I would write, but I always put it off.
And she's a good writer.
And I'm a good writer. And so by that, I mean, I write easily. It's not that what I write is so interesting. That's what I want to have it be interesting. And but I realized that to do it, I have to be willing to sit in front of my computer and wait. I can't have it all figured out in advance. So that won't be creative if I think I know I've got it all planned out. I have to wait and see what ideas come, what wants to come. And so far I haven't been willing to do that. I haven't thought I had the time, but I'm choosing to explore that now.
Well, I think when you speak of creativity, I think looking at it metaphorically, when we sit and wait for something to happen, we can sit a long time and wait. And if we're willing to wait long enough, something will happen. If we simply say, I'm going to comment on the sitting, I'm going to be in the sitting and see how I can see how that's unfolding, how I can talk about that, we begin to enter into that silence. We enter into that place rather than waiting for it to come to us. We can go to it.
Well, that's how journaling works. I know that's how you do journaling.
Well, I think that in essence, life is like journaling, and you are willing to journal the experience and then watch it unfold. And you make a very interesting point too. And I think a lot of us have this, and I certainly do as a writer. I need to make it interesting. Well, actually, what you need to do is just allow it to happen and go back later and make it interesting. Go back later and look at it and add to it or take away from it or say, is that interesting? Sometimes the most interesting things that happen to us in our lives go right on by us and are not even noticed. And it's only when we go back and look at it, that's really interesting. I was listening to Judith and Sandra on the phone the other day, and I listen as much as I can because I like hearing private conversations. and Sandra was talking about her sewing machine and how it worked and what she did with it and what she learned about it. And I thought, oh my God, this is so interesting. What was interesting was not the sewing machine, but the level of her involvement and investment and understanding and connection and the dance that she was doing with this technical thing. And I said, that's just a fascinating story. It didn't sound fascinating on the surface, but it's fascinating when you start looking at what is this person doing with this inanimate object and making it come to life and finding a way to be with it. That's really interesting stuff. So I think what I'm saying is maybe one of the things we can do is to look at the ordinary and see the extraordinary. In every ordinary experience, there's something extraordinarily wonderful happening that often we're not noticing. You know, I will switch gears a little bit. I like to go out on our cat. We call it a catwalk. I don't know why it's a catwalk because we can't have cats where we live, but they call it a catwalk. And I go out on the catwalk and I'm looking at the bush down below me, one floor below me. And as I'm looking down at the bush, there's a little iguana, and he turns his head and he looks up at me, and I look at him, and he said, I don't know how dangerous you are, and I'm going to stay here for a while. And he stood there for the longest time, and he turned his head the other way, and then he I see you're over there too. And then he watched and he watched. And I stayed there 15 minutes watching this iguana watching me. And I thought, isn't it interesting to spend 15 minutes of a life that's relatively short watching me, watch him, asking the question, when is it going to be safe? What should I do? And then finally, slowly, he headed toward the flower that he was hungry for, but he was able to. There's a whole story in that. There's a novel in that, if you want there to be. Or, yeah, I went out on the catwalk. I don't know why they call it a catwalk, and I saw an iguana, and I went back in. And in the movie, if you haven't seen it, and I plugged this movie before, you've got to see it. The Big Fish. Remember the character's name, the actor's name?
I will in a minute.
Yeah. Anyway, the main character is a wonderful actor. His son is at his bedside, and his son is forever just, why, Dad, do you have to make such an over-exaggerated story about everything? He says, at my birth, you made this story about the way I was born, and it's crazy. And so his father says, okay, son, your mother went into the hospital. She lay down in the bed. She had labor for 28 minutes. Pop, you were born. That was it. Next. Is that a good story? Does that represent what actually happened? Does that represent the birth experience of you coming into the world? And the son looks at him for the first time and realizes, no, it doesn't. We see, we don't know how to capture the elegance, the adventure, the excitement, the wonder of the moment because we're busy getting on to the next one, having assessed the one we just had and having decided whether it was a good or a bad moment and whether we want any more of it or not. We forget that we are in the middle of an extraordinary movie that is costing somebody a lifetime to create. I mean, quite literally.
That was the Big Fish, right?
The Big Fish, yeah.
Big Fish.
The Big Fish.
And I still can't think of his name. He's a British actor.
He's a great actor. But it's just a great example, though, because all the way through the movie, he doesn't exaggerate the truth. He exaggerates the facts. And the facts are very different than the truth. The truth is just extraordinary. And because our lives are extraordinary.
So I can't remember his name, but I remember he played
Albert Finney.
Albert Finney, yes, that's it. So I just want to remind you as we're closing that you were born in freedom. You have freedom of choice every single day. But the most important freedoms you have is the freedom to create your life the way you want it. And if there's any part of it that you're not happy with, start visualizing, imagining, seeing yourself in the life you want to live. And spend time doing that, because if you're not, you're spending all of your time repeating your habits that created where you are right now. And that's not creative. That's not freedom. That's restriction. So imagine, see yourself, enjoy seeing yourself, being, doing, experiencing what it is you want to experience. And that's whether you're changing your health, your body, your circumstances, your relationships, whatever it is. And that is the ultimate freedom, isn't it? Isn't that the ultimate freedom?
Really
To really create what we want. So don't forget, you have that power. It's so ubiquitous, it's so everywhere that we can forget that we have it. And it's not reinforced by our society. So you won't hear it outside this teaching much. You won't hear it from your friends and neighbors and relatives and the news. So read the books that remind you, have friends that remind you, study things that remind you, because there's the ultimate joy in that freedom.
And I want to thank Marty today for bringing her dog. It's wonderful.
Yes.
And what I noticed when Marty brought her dog, yes, I see, Jeff, I see your flower. But Marty, I love how you looked when the dog came onto the screen. I love the love that you showed. And I saw recently a picture of Alex on Facebook with her dog. There's something wonderful about our pets and what they can do for us. They free us up to there's a childlike love that we all have that we don't ever want to lose, that they seem to wake up in us because they haven't lost it.
Sandra's cat has the freedom to block her whole
yes,
camera.
And I love that. And I love how Sandra and her cat managed to get along together. I'm gonna close this with a treatment if that's
yes, let's do.
Okay.
Or you do.
I'm gonna so having been together today in a divine and profound way, we savor the taste, the fragrance, the wonder, the joy, and the adventure of living this life that we are living. We know that we are living it well, we are living it powerfully, we are living it extraordinarily. We know that who we are is a divine light in the mind of God. We know that we are a spark of life, a spark of excitement, of possibility. We know that who we are right here and right now has never ever been matched by any other creation on the planet. And that who we are right now is here by divine purpose. And we say thank you for this. We say thank you for the opportunity to be alive here right now. We are grateful that right now, here and now, we are the best we have ever been in a profound and wonderful way. We know this to be true. And together we say, and so it is.
And so it is.
Now, before we leave you, this is
a little commercial. Oh, that helps.
This is where you send hundreds of dollars. And by the way, for whatever reason, a lot of people seem to have forgotten that we are a center that does actually live on the basis of people's contributions, because the contributions have been next to non-existent. And so we really do need that in order to be able to continue our mission here, to be with you every Sunday. So thank you in advance for your generous giving. And so it is.
I would,
We're going to stop recording now.
we'll stop recording and then I'll say something else.
Okay.